Willkommen zurück auf der Austria Comic Con 2025 und jetzt zum großen Gotham Panel humpelt quasi auf die Bühne Robin Lord Taylor. Hello.
Hallo, wie geht's? Comment ça va?
Wait, one was not like the others.
Yeah, I know, that was French, I'm sorry. I was quoting, there's a musical in America called Cabaret, and I don't know if you know it, but it starts with a song that goes, Wie geht's? Comment ça va? How are you? How are you doing? Yeah. Anyway, look it up, it's a great movie.
It is. One of the classics, actually. Yesterday we talked a lot about Gotham, so today I would like to talk to you a bit more about the other things that you have done, of which there are very many.
I'd like more.
Especially one of my favorite film franchises at the moment is John Wick, which is amazing.
Yes.
And you were in the third part in a very small, but let's say especially unrecognizable role.
Yes.
So, what can you tell us about the process of applying the tattoos and the piercings and how it came about that you were in John Wick?
It was actually, again, much like Gotham, it was actually one of the easiest jobs I ever got. Chad Stileski, who directed the film, reached out to my representatives and, you know, they wanted me to play this very small part. I don't know how he knew me. I guess it was from Gotham. But and there was no audition. I just got to Zoom with this amazing director of, you know, one of the most exciting action franchises of the last 20 years. And so we talked on Zoom and he was like, you know, he just, instead of like, he knew that I could perform the role, but he wanted to know if I was, you know, like a chill, cool person, which I think is really almost, not as, but equal, almost as important as being a good actor, especially when you're doing something that's as complicated as John Wick, when there's so many moving parts and so many scenic elements, you know. They don't want to have an actor who has a big ego, who's gonna, you know, take a long time on the day. And so he was just like talking to me on Zoom just to see basically if I was cool, and I think I passed the test because he brought me on, and funnily enough, it was the very first day of shooting on John Wick 3, and so, you know, they were still setting up the makeup trailer, they were still like figuring out, you know, how they were going to pull this off, but it was amazing. I got to work with the incredible makeup designer, who unfortunately his name escapes me at the moment, but he was so excited. They put tattoos all over me. I had fake piercings. I had, like, you know, this really goth kind of styling, which was great. It worked because I still had black hair from Gotham, and yeah, we shot. I just worked on it for one day, but the best thing about it is that my character, the administrator, delivers the information that carries the movie from the second act to the third act. Like, I'm basically the one who lets them know that we are after John and sets it all in motion. So that's like kind of, I find this, I've played a couple of these roles. I mean, I've played many very small roles over the years, but it's always so great when, even if it's a small role, if you're delivering information that, you know, moves the plot along, it just feels even more special. So yeah, it was a really, really exciting time, yeah.
And that's, I mean, it's easy to carry a movie when you are in 90% of the movie, but when you only have a bit part, still leaving an impact on the audience is harder, actually.
You're absolutely right. And in fact, that you bring that up, you're sort of reminding me, like, the nervousness that I felt that day. Because again, I'm looking at it and it's only like maybe 10 lines or something. You know, it's just very simple in terms of the amount of work. But when it's very simple and when it's so stylized, it's really hard to not become self-conscious, like to just feel free, because you want to be so perfect, you want to fit the role, you want to fit the world, but you only have 10 lines to do such a thing. And so, yeah, you're right. It actually weirdly is more complicated when it's small like that. But, yeah.
And you say that this over self-confidence that comes with the character, that's basically your job, to transform into this other person.
Yes.
And that is something I find very interesting. Every actor has a different approach towards staying in character, to going to the whole, the word escapes me, method acting approach, yes, to completely dropping the character after each and every take. What is your approach?
You know, it depends on the scene. For me, for example, like in Gotham, you know, I had a lot of very emotional scenes, like very high emotion scenes. And, you know, like, for example, like when Oswald loses his mother, you know, it was difficult in so many ways, not the least of it being that my dear friend Carol Kane, that meant that she was no longer going to be in the show. And, you know, that's really one of the hardest things about acting, is when you're playing with someone and their character dies. As the actor, you know, you feel all of those emotions that the character is supposed to feel, but as the actor, you feel sadness because this actor, their job is finished, and having been killed off on many things, you know, it's painful because you know what that feels like. You know, like, oh, they're not coming to work tomorrow because their character is dead. So there was that going in. But anyway, to say, like, when it's a very emotional scene, I am not a method actor, but I find it hard to, like, if it's a scene where I have to be crying, where I'm processing something very difficult, I kind of have to stay in that emotional state, in that physical state for the duration of the day, just because it's really hard to turn it on and off. Now, if it's a scene where we're having fun and we're talking and it's like silly or whatever it is, then it can come and go. But you know, when you're crying and stuff, I would find that I would have to sort of not in a standoffish way, but I would have to kind of hang back. I couldn't like make small talk with everybody because I'm just trying to stay in that physical, emotional state that the character is in. So, yeah.
But still, I think over 5 years, you do grow together as a family. And last year, we had David Massouz and Sean Pert.
Why are they here this year? I missed them.
Here, and they told us a lot about the atmosphere on the set and how much fun can be had when the cameras aren't rolling. So what do you recall or remember of, I don't know, like little sidestep antics off camera?
Sure. Let's see. There was one big scene. I forget what season it was, but there was a ballroom scene that had Bruce Wayne, Alfred, Barbara, all of the main characters were in this one scene together, which was very rare for our show. So whenever that happened, it was always so exciting, and we were like a bunch of kids together. We were like a family, and so we were shooting this beautiful ballroom scene, and I'm in a 3-piece tuxedo, and the women are in beautiful gowns and high heels, and everyone looks like $1 million. And they would call cut, and then we would all go tromping up the stairs together to hang out in the dressing rooms and like play music and, you know, just have fun. So it was just like, I remember like like when we would all be able to get together, we would just make the most out of it.
Yeah. And you say when you spend so many years and times together, you can say you had so many birthdays together, but you and Sean actually have your birthday together on the same day.
Yes, we do. We are both June 4th, not the same year, but yes, no, and it's so funny because like astrology, whatever you may believe about it, whatever. But it was really funny because Sean and I, when we first met each other and first started talking, we felt this immediate connection, just like this immediate ease of conversation. And we could not have more different childhoods. Like, he's from England, his father was Doctor Who, he's somewhat posh. I'm from a small town in Iowa, in America, a world difference, but we just had this connection that was just so the same. And then we found out we had the same birthday, and we were like, that must be it. There it is. Yeah. So we share that with Angelina Jolie, and we'll invite her to come and hang out next time.
What I find most interesting when talking about TV shows is that there's sometimes a lot of secrecy with Game of Thrones especially, not even giving the actors full scripts but only their scenes, actors having to flip to the last pages of scripts to see if their name is still listed or if they have been killed off in said episode. I think that was rather harmless in the world of Gotham.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there were certain, of course, we had to keep secrets from social media, keep secrets from the public. But, the executive producers were very good about laying out to the actors at the beginning of every season where they were going to end up. And of course there were changes along the way, but for the most part we knew at the beginning of the season sort of where we would be by the end. But Gotham was nothing like, I was on 2 episodes of The Walking Dead, and that show super locked down. I mean, they did not tell me anything. They gave me the audition, and then they didn't even give me the script for the episode, not even when I filmed it. They would only give us the scenes. So that was interesting. And at the end of my first episode, it was obvious that I survived, but my girlfriend did not. And so we were both talking, after we finished shooting the episode, my friend Brina Palencia, who played my girlfriend on Walking Dead, we were chatting, and she was like, dude, you're not dead. So she died. She was like, I'm dead, but you're not dead. And I was like, I know. Do you think they'll bring me back? And then no word, no news. The next year, I auditioned for Gotham. I got Gotham. We shot the first episode of Gotham. And then there was a little break of a couple months before I went back to shoot, or before we went back to shoot the rest of the first season of Gotham. And in that little break, The Walking Dead calls up, and they were like, we're bringing you back. You're gonna die. And I was like, I don't care, I'll do it. Like, anything to be part of the Walking Dead universe, was amazing. But, it's funny because people were, I've met a lot of the Walking Dead, actors and the producers and directors over the years at Comic-Cons like this. And I was at a Comic-Con with Greg Nicotero, who is the creator, director, genius behind Walking Dead. And he came up to me and gave me a big hug, and he said, do you know how many people have asked me, why did you kill off Robin Lord Taylor? And he said to them, he was like, his hair's black. He has a new gig. I'm sorry. What am I going to do? So, which is nice, because then I'm like, wow, if I didn't get Gotham, would I still have gone on in Walking Dead? But we'll never know. So,
But you mentioned only getting the scenes for in which you are. Doesn't that make it way more difficult to portray a character and to fit into an established universe like in a TV show if you don't basically get the whole picture?
I mean, in some ways, yes, but with Walking Dead, it wasn't terrible because I had the scenes that I was shooting, and I was a guest star, so I wasn't, in the full family. I knew what I was there to do, which was okay. But, I couldn't imagine being like a regular actor on the show, a series regular, and not knowing. That would have been impossible, because you do want to know, even though you shoot it all out of sequence, you still, again, like I said, you want to know where we're going by the end, so that, as best as you can when you're on a film or TV set, you still want to craft the performance so that the emotional arc makes sense throughout the whole episode. So, if I were a series regular and they didn't tell me where I was going, I would be like, this is a problem, we have to fix this. Like, I don't know what I'm doing,
Yes, you're doing something completely different. To lead over, Walking Dead was another show where actors kept flicking through the scripts to see if their name is still on the last page. So, but you can also package spoilers into a title, like for instance calling something "The Death of the Outsider," and you are the outsider, and you know, okay, so this is where I'm going here.
This is where this is happening.
But apart from acting, with your full body, you also did the voice work for the Dishonored series as the outsider.
Yes, just the second one. There was a different actor for Dishonored 1, and then I came in for Dishonored 2 to play the outsider.
So what can you tell us about the difference of having your whole body and body language associated with it to portray a character to just doing voice work?
It's really interesting because it's a lot more specific, but it's also a lot more of a collaboration on the performance with the director of the game. Because if it's me and my body on film, my voice matches my body, I know the story I'm telling. I'm not telling it with just my voice, I'm telling it with my whole body. With video games or with animation, you don't necessarily know what your character is going to be doing with their body, with their hands. The director does. They have a clearer idea. So they're constantly like, I would say a line a certain way, and they would come back and be like, let's be quieter on this, maybe add a little bit of a laugh here. It's just, they're a lot more specific about what they want you to do because they want you to match the animation. So again, it's like, some people could see it as being, like someone else is taking the control of the performance, but I see it much more as a collaboration, like 2 or 3 or 500 people working together to create this character, which was really cool. It was a different thing, and again, the specificity of voice is something that it feels so untenable at first. It feels very slippery, but then as you get into it and you start working with the director, it starts to get you get into a rhythm together, and it's really exciting.
Do you think there's a difference in voicing like an animated character or a character in a video game because it's an interactive piece of media and the consumer also has a part in the characters?
Yes, I think so. I mean, well, especially with Dishonored 2, the story of the outsider that we were telling in that game was so much more rich and so much more developed than a lot of stuff that one would see in like a comedy animation or something. It's a story about, this character and their history, and there's a lot of long speeches and monologues and, backstory about how he came to be. And so, it's difficult in that way,
And what I love, video games, there always was a big question, are video games even art? And so they were thrown to the side, but at the moment they're big productions, and especially Dishonored has an amazing voice cast. It's Michael Madsen, Rosario Dawson, Sam Rockwell, Pedro Pascal, the amazing Vincent D'Onofrio. So, when you recorded your voice, did you work together with other actors, or was everyone recorded separately?
I can't speak for anybody else, but I was separate because the outsider is a loner. He's by himself most of the time. It's a very intimate relationship between that character and the human being who is playing the game. I didn't speak to anybody else who is any other character in the game. I just spoke directly to the player. And so sadly, I didn't get to work with those amazing, amazing people, but still just to be a part of that world together was just a dream.
Another question I always ask actors, because it's so interesting to hear the different perspectives, is do you watch your own stuff? Or in that case, did you play your own stuff afterwards?
Yeah, at the beginning of Gotham, for maybe the first 2 seasons or so, that was sort of when, I'm not going to say X, well, that was when Twitter was still a thing, and live tweeting during shows, like when the actors the actors live tweeting as the shows were airing, you know, that was very popular and very much a thing. So in that case, in the beginning, I was watching every episode, and you know, it was actually easier watching Gotham than other work that I've done, because the character was so physically and, you know, physically, emotionally, mentally different than I am personally. So even just the visual was so different than how I'm used to seeing myself. I was sort of able to like disconnect from it, which was nice. It was easier to watch for that reason, because, you know, and also the show just looked so beautiful, and the actors are so wonderful that I also wanted to see how they were doing their roles and like what amazing stuff they were coming up with. But at the end of, you know, maybe the second season, you know, we shot 22 episodes a year, 9 months every year. I got a little burned out, and then I just sort of had to put a little bit of distance between myself and the character. And, you know, there's some things that I feel like I can watch, but other things, it honestly depends on the project, yeah. Generally, I don't love to watch myself, because I can get a little too critical of myself, and then I worry that when I show up to work, I'm gonna have some sort of altered image in my head of what I'm doing, and maybe I'll become a little bit more self-conscious, and I don't want that at all. I'm a theater actor, so I'm used to, my training is based in theater, where I come out in front of people and it's a full show and it's live, and we start from the beginning and we go to the end and it's live and then it's over. And you know, until recently you weren't able to watch it back, like, you know, unless you like are a real weirdo and you go back and watch people's videos on YouTube that they take of your performance. I've never done that, but you know, that's where I'm based in, so I'm really sort of used to just putting the work out there and letting it speak for itself. I don't need to see it, you know, I don't need to watch it. I can if I have to, but I generally don't.
We only have time for one more last
Anybody
question.
got a question?
So,
anything?
does anybody have one?
No.
Yes.
Yay!
Amazing.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Good to see you, Chris. What's up?
Hi. If you could star in a movie of your choice, what king of the world will be?
I love a challenge, and again, my training is in theater, so I think it would probably have to be one of the classics, probably something by Chekhov. Like if I could play, you know, Trigorin in The Seagull, or Shakespeare, if I could play Richard III. Like I would love to be able, it's all selfishly, I just want to prove to myself that I can do it. I believe that I can, but I haven't had the opportunity yet. So that's what I would want to do, is to do a big classic play on stage and just get into the role and devote myself to that character for a full year. I just did a play off-Broadway in New York City, and it was the first play that I've done in 17 years, which was insane, but it was the most amazing experience because, again, like I said, when you do a play, obviously, you start at the beginning, you go to the end, you do the whole thing. It's like a roller coaster. You start and then and then it's done. And you get to ride the whole emotional wave through the whole thing. And then on top of it, we did it for a full month and a half. And you would think that after a couple weeks, it would get boring and that, you know, you're just like sort of blah, 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 like, you know, saying your lines as you've done, like, you know, like it's just a routine. But no, it's like the more you do the show, it's like a fractal. Do you know a fractal? Like something that the more you look at it, the more complex it gets, the more things about it start to emerge, the deeper, the more connected you get to the character and to the performance. It's really an incredible experience, and unfortunately not one that you can really feel in the same way when you do film and television. So that's what I want to do. We'll see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that amazing question and your being here. Thank you so much for
It's a
joining
pleasure.
us.
Dankeschön. Thank you so much, Vels. I
And
appreciate you. I love you. We all love you. Come say hello. We're right over there. Mwah.
A huge round of applause, Robin Lord Taylor.